Hi everyone. Wish you all a very good evening. Can you confirm one more time whether you can hear me or not? All right. I noticed that quite a few of you are not Jamboree students. For them, I would just start by giving a brief introduction about Jamboree, a very brief, in fact. So we have physical presence in 39 centers. So we do training for GMAT, GRE, SAT, TOEFL, IELTS, all the exams that are necessary to study abroad primarily, even though some of the universities in India have also of late started accepting this course. We have presence in 22 cities across 4 countries. We also have a very strong digital and online presence. We have been teaching students live on online since 2016. Therefore, when this whole lockdown started, we were able to smoothly transition our teaching from classroom into online. So our students did not miss even a single day of class. So from March 21, we have been delivering our classes online. All the support that a student gets in the classroom format, they also get in the online format. Classes are taught by faculty. Students have access to faculty, for doubt clearing sessions. So all the mock tests, etc., are available to students. So in case anyone wants if you want a free demo GMAT or GRE class or any profile evaluation session, please leave your number in the chat. So those of you who are not Jamboree students, if you would want to take one of our classes for free to see how we teach, etc., so you can leave your number in the chat. Our team will get in touch with you and schedule that. So I'll pause for a minute here to allow you to do so. Okay, you can continue to type out your requirements in the chat. Just leave your number and let us know what you want. You may want a demo GMAT class or a profile evaluation session, or you may want both. So just keep on typing in the chat window while I lay down the ground rules for this session. So we have some information that we have planned to give to you. So we'll first go through that information. And during that time, I would request you to not put up your questions in the chat window. We will not be able to deliver our information and answer your questions, simultaneously. So let us first deliver the information that we want to deliver, and like after we are done, so there will be a Q&A session, right? I see that some of you are just writing what you need, but you will need to give your number as well. Otherwise, we will not know where to call you, right? Okay, all right. So with me today, I have one of our students, Chinmay Shah. Chinmay, why don't you give us a brief introduction about yourself? Say hi to everyone here.
Hello, am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, I can hear you, Chinmay.
Yes. So I'm currently graduating from Vishwakarma Institute of Technology in Pune, in majoring in mechanical engineering. And I got a 720 in my GMAT, which I took last month. And I'll be applying for Masters in Management next year for the 21 intake, September 21 intake. And yeah, so happy to answer any questions which you have regarding that.
Congratulations on your score, Chinmay.
Sorry?
I said congratulations on your score.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I have a question for everyone here, that why are you considering a management education? So maybe Chinmay, I'll start with you. Why are you considering management education?
Okay, so all my extracurricular activities, I developed a keen inclination towards management, and I feel that management can offer you something which a technical degree can't. So it can give you people skills, ability to communicate, interactive points more clearly, which will even help you in your personal life. So that is one of the main reasons I'm considering management education, and I want to shift towards the consulting side from a technical side. And this is also one of the major reasons why I'm considering management education.
Anybody else? So anybody else wants to answer why they are considering doing a management education? Please raise your hand. I can give you mic access and then you can answer. Anyone else wants to? Okay, Anirudh. Yes, Anirudh, why are you considering a management education? You can unmute yourself and answer.
Hi, sure. So I am considering a management education because I want to make a I'm so just a quick background about me. I am already a management student. I have done my BBA. I have done my MBA from Asian Institute of Management in 2010. I graduated in 2011. It's almost been a decade since I have been to school. A lot has changed since in terms of advancements, way of working, new avenues. So I would like to pursue another 1 year master's in business administration program to get abreast of the skills to apply what I have learned so far, and of course, make a lateral movement from my current stream of work into consulting, into management consulting. And management education will definitely give me that boost that I need to make that movement from my current line of work, a functional change essentially.
Thanks, Anirudh. Thanks, Anirudh. Yes, anybody else wants to go? Why do you? Anybody else? If you can raise your hand, I can answer. I can give you mic access and then you can answer. Yes, Gurpreet Diol. Why are you considering? Gurpreet Diol.
Hi everyone. Myself Gurpreet. Actually, I'm working in a government department from around 4.5 years. So actually, I want to switch my field. That's why I'm looking for a management program right now.
Can you elaborate what do you mean by quit my field? So you said government sector. So what exactly?
Yeah, I'm working in public works department for government of Telangana. So right now working in a technical field, but somehow I'm doing a MBA work right now also. So, and moreover, I want to switch into the corporate sector. That's why I'm looking to do a management course.
All right. Thanks, Gurpreet. So, anyone else? Just raise your hand. I'll give you mic access. Anybody else wants to share why you are considering doing like management degree? It can be an MBA, it can be an MIM, but why a management education? You are here today for this webinar. That means you are obviously considering, doing a management education. So share your reason with us. Please raise your hand if you want to share. No, nobody? Okay. So these are some of the common reasons. These are actually not some of the common reasons. These are the most common reasons why students like yourself or people like yourself, they think about a management education. It can be an MBA, it can be an MIM. For working professionals, it's mostly MBA, obviously. To expedite career growth. So as if you may be a software engineer, working at a certain company for 6, 7, 8 years, now you want to go to the next level. right? Or maybe, you know, you are already doing project management kind of work because you have been there for so long. So why not like get the official, you know, designation and the official pay that for whatever work you are doing. So to expedite career growth, maybe if you continue doing well in your current field, you may end up there, but that might take you another 6-7 years. So why wait for 6-7 years when you can reach there in 2-3 years? So I think same for Chinmay also. Chinmay, if he does, you know, after his bachelor's degree, if he works for a couple of years, and he will probably in 5-6 years he will reach wherever he, you know, the position that he wants to reach. But after doing an MIM, he will get there faster, and of course the exposure is a lot more. So to expedite career growth, this is one of the topmost reasons for people wanting to expedite wanting to do an MBA or any kind of management degree. The next is to switch role or industry. Now, especially those of you who have studied in India, so the Indian education system is not very choice friendly. So after your class 10th itself, based on whatever you know, you are expected to choose among you know, science, commerce, and humanities. So usually students who score high in science and math, you know, pick up science, you know, even though they may do better in commerce. So you know, it's not very choice friendly in the sense that you are expected to make choices without having all the necessary information beforehand. Similarly, after class 12, somebody who wants to do an engineering, let's say, you are at this counseling stage itself, you are expected to decide, you know, whether you should do computer science or electronics or electrical or instrumentation. But you know, the education till class 12, with that information, you probably don't even know what's the difference between instrumentation and electronics, right? So and the same for for people who go for 3-year degrees also, that should you go for BSc physics honors or maths honors, should you go for BCom, should you go for BBA? But with that limited knowledge that you have had till class 12, you are expected to make a decision. And once you have made the decision, it's extremely difficult to change without losing at least 1 year of your education. So there are maybe cases that a lot of students do that, you know, they start engineering or they start BCom, and then they realize that that's not what they want to do. Then they shift, yes, but by the time they have lost a year, right? And if you have started doing an engineering degree, so within the engineering also, maybe you picked up electronics or I don't know, mechanical because the college was good, but you realize that you have better aptitude for computer science. So then, so you still have to finish up your 4 years of mechanical or electrical till, you know, and then probably get a job at a software industry. So the whole system is not very choice friendly. Therefore, a lot of Indian professionals are doing jobs which they don't love. They may be good at it, you know. If you are if you have good IQ, then you will do well at, you know, whatever job you are doing. That's not the point. The point is that you have to enjoy your work. If you enjoy your work, you will end up doing far better, you know, than than you are currently doing at a job which you probably have aptitude for, but you don't have passion for, right? So and people recognize this after 1 or 2 years of working. They recognize this, and then the thought starts forming that I want to switch. There may not be clarity about uh, what to do next, but definitely there is this thought that I want to switch. You know, maybe you get the whole computer science, coding, AI may be a little glamorized, but once you start doing it, you know, people tend to get bored pretty quickly, right? Or you get stuck in a certain mode. So we have a lot of software engineers who come to us saying that we want to switch, maybe to marketing, maybe to sales, maybe to finance, but definitely want to switch, don't want to do anything related to coding anymore. We get that a lot. We also get people, surprisingly, we get a lot of people from the army background, merchant navy background, saying that we would rather do consulting or management kind of job, which we are anyway doing, but no, without those risks and with more money. We get that category of students also, which is great. So switch either role or industry. As I think I forgot the name, Gurpreet, or I'm so sorry. So the second person who spoke, as you said, as you mentioned, that you want to now switch your industry from government kind of job. You want to go to a hardcore corporate job. Understood, right? So you want to switch your industry. Someone you may want to switch your role also. From maybe being a CA, you may want to get into finance consulting, right? So switching role or industry is actually one of the biggest reasons why students look at a management education, particularly MBA, right? When you are MIM students, at least you don't have any work experience, so there is not much talk about switching anything. But for MBA students, switching your role or industry, is one of the biggest motivations. The next, which is not that common but still comprises of about 20-25% of the people wanting to get into management education, is entrepreneurship. That some people, they maybe right out of college or even after a few years of work experience, they realize that they want to get into entrepreneurship. They want to start their own something, own venture, maybe not immediately but 3-4 years down the line. And for that, they want now a formal MBA education, and not just formal business education, but also the network. The network is very, very important. The relationships that you make, the connections that you make during your management education, that comes in massively handy when you start your own venture. So entrepreneurship is also it's not as big as a motivation as the first two, but like around 20-25% of the students who want to pursue a management education, they look at this. So now, I mean, and your reason is probably either will probably be one of these buckets. I encounter like very, very students I have been with Jamboree since 2007, and in all my years I have actually encountered only 2 people who said that I want to do an MBA because I want to learn, and learn for the sake of learning. The person, they actually wanted to become professors. They actually literally wanted to learn and teach academia. In my all these years with Jamboree, I encountered only 2 such people with whom I worked, right? So that is very, very, very small minority. Okay. Now, so your reason would probably in one of these 3 buckets. You have to now consider, where do you what is your motivation, and then all the decisions that you make have to go from there, right? Which program you choose, which university you choose, all of those decisions have to be made based on your reason, for wanting to do a management education, right? And whenever you are asking yourself, should I do my MBA or should I do my MIM or any kind of management degree now, or should I wait for 2 years or 3 years, so now that question also has to be based on these reasons. Should you drop your plans for doing your management education? Yes, you should, if your reason is no longer there. If your reason for wanting to do a management education is no longer there, then obviously you should drop the idea. Maybe your company gave you a massive promotion and gave you the role that you always dreamt of. Then why do you then obviously you can drop your plans of doing a management education. So before deciding whether to drop your plan for doing your management education or not, ask yourself, is my reason, do I still have the reason for wanting to do? If the answer is no, that your reason for thinking of doing a management education in the first place, if that reason no longer exists, then obviously drop your plan and move ahead, move on with your life. If the reason is still there, then it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of postponing it for 1 year, 2 years, etc., etc. It's just a matter of time, when you take that step. If you're pretty clear that yes, I have to take that step towards a management education, then the next part is, okay, should I do it right now, or should I wait for a year, or should I wait for a couple of years till like things get better? Now the problem with life is that there are no guarantees. Last year during this time in 2019 August, nobody would have probably told you that we would be spending 5 months literally under house arrest, literally in lockdown into 2020. that seems like a scene right out of a science fiction movie, right? So life is unpredictable. Recessions can happen anytime in life. These kind of things can probably, if not that frequent, but even a coronavirus kind of situation also happens in life, right? So if you're looking for a perfect time to take the plunge, there is no guarantee that you will have that perfect time next year or year after that, right? So it's a risk and an investment. It's a risk in the sense that people who were thinking of starting their MBA from August of this year, so they are obviously in a fix, right? So a lot of them have not been able to fly out. A lot of them are now starting their MBAs online. So yes, things didn't pan out that well for them, obviously, but that can happen with anybody. Now another thing is that, as I was telling you, that do you still need the MBA? So if either when you postpone, there is no guarantee that things will pan out or things will become better. And if you drop it altogether, then probably you'll have to go through the rest of your life with this nagging feeling that if only I had done the MBA, I would be achieving what these others are also achieving. They are not even as good as me, but still they have, they are doing better in life. They're more successful, etc., etc. So you may have to live with that thought, right? And MBA education is an investment. Even people who have started their MBA degrees online for the first semester this year, they have 2 years to wrap up their MBAs. By the time an MBA degree goes into your, or MBA or MIM, a management degree goes into your CV for life. It will help you with your whether it's job offers, etc., etc. It will help you for life, right? So it's a risk, yes. It's also an investment. So there's no perfect answer to should I like drop my plans, or should I do it next year? Nobody knows what next year is going to be like. So even the very fact that you have decided to do an MBA or do an MIM at this stage, that itself is a risk. That itself is a risk, right? There is an opportunity cost involved. So now the risk is probably +1, a little bit more. But you have to be willing to take those risks. No risk, no gains, right? High risk, high gains. That's how things work. So now coming back to it, so now based on these reasons, the next level of your decision points have to be based on that. Things like which university. If your reason for wanting to do management education is to get into entrepreneurship, right? So then you have to make sure that you go to a university where there is room for entrepreneurship, where there are probably incubation cells, right, which will help you become an entrepreneur. If you want to move into I don't know, finance consulting, then pick a university which is strong in finance. So all these decisions, which university, etc., etc., which program, it will have to depend on your reason. Now here sometimes students make the mistake of thinking, let me first pick a country. I want to do it in India. I want to do it in Singapore. So when you're picking a country, so never pick a country, so when you're picking a country, you are limiting your options. So always pick university. Always first decide which program is mainly MIM or MBA. That's not a very tough decision. If your work experience is more than 1 year or more than like 2 years, then obviously you have to going for an MBA is the better decision. But so which program is not that much of a big big decision. So always think in terms of which university rather than which country, right? It's a university that goes onto your CV. It's a university name that goes on your resume, not the country. So apply to whichever universities that you want to. They may be spread across the world, and once you get the admission offers, then decide which one to go to. So the country should be not that much of a factor. So of course I'm going to discuss some business schools, and sometimes there may be reasons for excluding a certain country, but more or less your decision for choosing university should be based on the university alone, not necessarily where the university is located, right? So think in terms of which university you want to go rather than like which country you want to go to. Next is a very important point, ROI, return on investment. If you are going to pursue a management degree, you have to think like, like managers. So if you are already earning a very high salary, if you're already earning like 25-30 lakhs per annum, then your options are limited. No point in doing an MBA degree after which you will end up earning the same amount of salary, right? So if you are at a higher salary level, anybody earning more than 25-30 lakhs per annum, so your decision is actually about which university. It becomes tricky. So you have to even think, does it make sense to go to this country, does it make sense to go to this university, etc., etc. So if you're not at that kind of a high spectrum, then it's still easy for you, right? Easier for you, not just easy, easier for you. People with less than 4 years, less than 5 years of work experience, it's actually any kind of MBA from any year would definitely be a good addition, a good thing on your profile, right? So unless you are at a high end salary, you still have many options left, right? Anybody here who has more than whose current income is more than 25-30 lakhs per annum? Anybody here? Okay, so some of you who have raised your hand, so for you have to be very, very careful while deciding the program. I mean, it has to make sense. After doing that MBA, you should end up getting a job. Even if you're switching your industry drastically, you cannot take a very massive salary cut, right? So you have to make sure that the average salaries of the program that you are choosing, it's like at least 10% higher than your current, minimum 10% higher than your current salary. Otherwise, it becomes difficult to justify the whole thing. Okay. So Chinmay, so when you were thinking of doing your management education, so you started your program and you took your exam during this whole pandemic, right? So didn't
Yes,
you
ma'am.
think about postponing the whole thing?
No, ma'am. Actually, I think of this pandemic as an advantage because by the time the situation would have simmered down, I would have equipped myself with a master's in management degree. So it would considerably boost me in the job market.
You are going to do an MIM because you don't have any work experience, and MIM
Yes,
is
ma'am.
obviously you're thinking of going abroad, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Which
So
are
I've
your
applied to ISB. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, yeah, I was getting to that question only. Which countries or which programs do you have in mind?
Okay, so as of now, I've applied to ISB YLP and I'm preparing for my interview right now. I've also applied to HEC Paris. I'm applying to HEC Paris, London Business School, London School of Economics, ESCP, and ESSEC in France. So the countries which I've shortlisted are UK and France because of the brand value of the colleges. And okay, so MIM stands for Masters in Management. And because of the brand value of the colleges and the global ranking and the recognition.
So those of you, just FYI, MIM stands for Masters in Management. This is a program that people with less than 2 years of work experience, they have a better chance of getting good colleges for MIM programs than for MBA programs. So and with MIM, you in your future is open. In future, after 5-6 years, you may still want to do an MBA from a better college, right? So MIM is actually better for people without work experience or with less than 1-2 years of work experience. So Chinmay, doesn't it cross your mind that going abroad, this current scenario, the risks and everything, doesn't it cross? I mean, all those thoughts or all those.
Not really, ma'am, because I think the situation would be normal in a year. If it doesn't, I can always opt for a deferment.
Okay.
And
Okay.
colleges are flexible that way.
Colleges are
Yes.
flexible. Even now, for the semester starting August, universities have given the option to students to study one semester online and then join the university from January, which is actually good.
Yes.
You save your cost of living when you're doing your doing a semester from home, then your costs are actually, the ROI gets even better because you're
Yeah.
not spending anything on cost of living. You're just staying with your parents and or wherever you stay. So your cost of living becomes zero, So yeah. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Now in course options, MBA obviously is the most popular program that students go for. Then MIM, as I already talked about. MIM is for people who don't have work experience, right? So it's like a semi MBA. You can think of that. It's not an MBA, which gives you the flexibility, which gives you the option of doing an MBA sometime in the future. But with MIM degrees like the ones that Chinmay is applying for, like HEC Paris, the London Business School, London School of Economics, so their MIM programs are extremely what should I say, reputed, right? So after actually an HEC Paris or a London Business School MIM grad ends up doing similar kind of jobs than what an MBA from an average college would do, right? So your work experience becomes stellar post the degree, and when you finally apply for an MBA, if you want to, then you get into the you have a shot at the top 5-10 colleges in the world, right? So MIM is actually a good option for people without work experience or people with less than 1-2 years of work experience. For the rest, MBA is there. You may also want to go the academic route and do MS Finance, MS Logistics. So these are programs for people without work experience. For people with work experience, our recommendation is that you should stick with MBA. Don't even think about the MS programs. But people with if you are an engineering student, let's say, and you without any work experience, then instead of doing an MBA, you may want to start off with either MS in technology management or MS in operations management, right? So they are good options. Even if you don't want to go to Europe do an MBA, pick up, you can do MS technology management, MS operations management kind of programs in the US, and then you have the same path, as an MIM, as an European MIM grad. MS Business Analytics is a really up and coming course, right? So it involves a lot of data science also, and analytics in today's world is the hottest program. All of you, I'm sure, would know about that. So MS Business Analytics is also something that you can consider. Again, the MS programs are more for people with less than 2 years of work experience. So these are some of the programs. If you want, you can take a screenshot of this before we go to the next segment. Okay, done. So now let me talk a little bit about the university options, right? So in India, after having taken a GMAT exam, your GMAT score will work in these universities. ISB, Indian School of Business in Hyderabad and Mohali, they have 2 campuses. Great Lakes in Chennai. Then some of the IIMs, they have a 1-year MBA program, which is for people with work experience. So the IIMs flagship or the main programs are the 2-year programs, but they also, a lot of the IIMs have added the 1-year programs, and they are for people with work experience. People with more than 5 years of work experience, by the way. So if you have more than 5 years of work experience, and for some family reason, if you don't want to go out of India, maybe you are married and have kids, etc., and you would like to stay close to them, then yes, it makes sense if you want to stay in India. In that case, the 1-year MBAs make sense. From the IIMs, they make sense. IIM they are always a brand value. And the IIMs, they have very limited seats, 60 to 80 seats. So it's extremely exclusive. They're very difficult to get into, extremely exclusive. You definitely have to get a GMAT score of 700, at least 700. But once you have this, then it's good. And for people with more than 5 years of work experience, the silver lining or the good thing is that these are 1-year MBA programs. So you are not going to be away from the job market for 2 years, right? You will be there only for a year. Your MBA is only going to be for a year. And because it's an IIM, for instance, you will have access to the campus recruitments. Their whole TP or training and placement departments are extremely strong. So good options for those of you who want to for some reason want to consider only India, there are a lot of good options. SPJN has a 1-year MBA as well as the 2-year. For the 2-year MBA also, they take GMAT scores. So they take CAT scores as well as GMAT scores. In CAT, usually their cutoffs about 85 percentile. In GMAT, the cutoffs usually ranges from 660 to 680. Now, trust me, getting a 680 or 660 on the GMAT is far easier than getting an 85 percentile on the CAT. Some of you may have taken the CAT, so you would know getting an 85 percentile is not that easy. Whereas, on the GMAT, getting a 660, 680 is like, not that difficult. Right? So these are some of the programs in India. Then the rest of Asia, some of the options in rest of Asia. National University of Singapore, Nanyang Tech, INSEAD, these are all in Singapore. These 3 are in Singapore. This is also in Singapore. These 3 are in Hong Kong. This is in China. Now, initially I had told you that, unless you have some really strong reason for excluding a country, you should not look at the country. Now, Hong Kong in today's times is probably one country that you should exclude. A lot of things, happening, I'm sure all of you know the lot of unrest happening in Hong Kong. So Hong Kong is probably a country that you should not consider, from whatever the situation is, does not seem that it's going to get settled in the next 1 year, 1 or 2 years, right? So maybe it's a smart move to leave out Hong Kong from your plans right now. But other options in Asia, they are very, very, very reputed universities. And everybody in India also knows them, so that's good. If you want to come back to India later on, also there's not a problem. And in Singapore, especially all these countries, Singapore, China, in these countries, it's very easy to get work permits, etc. You don't have to worry about that. In cost factor also, they are, INSEAD is the 60-65 lakhs. INSEAD is the most expensive university in Asia. But other universities are quite affordable. So, then ISB itself costs you close to 38-39 lakhs. So you can put in a few more lakhs and go do a degree from Singapore, right? And get a job in Singapore and plan out your whole life there. Now, in US is the destination that most Indian students gun for. This is the destination that most Indian students have been going to actually for the last 8-10 years. And US has lots of universities. In Singapore, there is just 3-4 good universities, right? In Hong Kong, again, there's 2-3 good universities. In other countries, so again, this is a handful of universities. But in US, there are close to 200 good universities. So in the US universities, you have to think of them in terms of the top 25 schools. It's not actually ranking wise, it's more reputation wise, about top 25 where these kind of schools are there, where you would need a 700 plus, anything less than a 700 for an Indian student will be really difficult to, unless you have a stellar profile, it will be difficult for you to get admission. Then the next set of colleges where you can get admission with a 620 to 700, extremely, again, they are highly reputed universities, but definitely not the caliber of the first set. Then the next set, right? So where even with an average GMAT score you can get admission. And we have had students who every year we get students who in their bachelor's degrees they have less than 50%, so they are not even able to write the CAT exam in India, right? So but they are able to get a GMAT score 550, 600, whatever, and then they do their MBAs from these kinds of colleges, and they work in top companies like Capital One, Amazon, Microsoft, working in the US and having a far better life than they would have had in India. So this category of colleges actually they make a lot of difference to an average student. Average student in the sense is somebody who is not able to get a good score. An up and coming destination. Actually, what we have seen that in the last couple of years, the applications to Canada, the applications that we send to Canada have more like tripled, right? Canada has become a hot destination. So in Canada, the problem with Canada is there's just a handful of colleges and they have become extremely, competitive because students apply, the applications have gone up. So there are also good universities. Some of them like, York and Queens, Richard Ivy and Queens, they're 1-year programs. So if for people with more than 8 to 10 years of work experience, if you're looking for a shorter MBA, then Richard Ivy and Queens are good options. They have 1-year MBAs. The others are all 2-year options. York University has a very, very interesting option for Indian students. It's a 2-year MBA program where you can do the first year from India. So you can do the first year in India, and then you can go to Canada for the second year, get the degree, get the work permit there and work there. So York is actually a very good option for Indian students with lower cost, purely because you have the option of doing the first year from India. So if you are looking at Canada, then these are some of the good options. Cost of an MBA varies from 25 to 55 lakhs. Now in Europe has has lots of good business schools like Oxford, Cambridge, London Business School, HEC Paris, INSEAD. INSEAD has 2 campuses, one in France and one in Singapore. Right. In the last few years, Netherlands has emerged as a good destination for international students. So these are the 2 top colleges in Netherlands. They have only 2 decent colleges, by the way, but they are good placements, good job opportunities, etc., etc. Especially with the whole Brexit thing coming, a lot of the businesses are actually moving to Amsterdam. So Amsterdam is a good place to be in the current times. Only problem, and that one advantage of the European MBAs are they are for 1 year. They are 1-year MBA programs, right? HEC Paris is 15 months, but everything else is 1 year. So again, for people with higher number of years of work experience, it's a good thing. You do a 1-year MBA, your opportunity costs are more attractive. You get into the job market sooner. It's really good, right? But one problem is that European business schools don't give out so much scholarships. Like there are a lot of scholarships, etc., given out in the US and Canadian universities, even the Singapore ones for that matter. But the European business schools don't offer that many scholarships. So your cost, would end up on the higher side. The cost of living is also far higher in Europe. So that's one thing that you may want to look at. Some of the top MIM programs for people with like less than 2 years of work experience. So if you want, you can take a picture of the screen. These are the schools on this. As you see, a lot of them are in Europe. A lot of them are in Europe. All these are in Europe. All of these are Europe. Mannheim is also a good program. This is also, Ireland is a very hot destination in Europe, So especially if you come from a technology background, if you are a software engineer, etc., then Ireland is a very good destination for the software industry. So most of the MIM programs, most of the top MIM programs are in Europe. Right? Now, for people without work experience, if you're still in college, right, then these are some of the top MBA programs that you can look at. Usually to get into a top MBA program, you would need to have some work experience. But these are programs that, have recently been, less than 10-year-old programs, which are especially for freshers. Harvard 2+2 MBA, Yale, Chicago Booth, Kelly, ISB YLP, Stanford. So these are all programs, and as you can see, most of them are, except these 2. IESE is in Spain, ISB is in India. Everything else is in the US. So in US, the US universities, they have started introducing MBA programs for freshers, people who have just graduated from college, right? So these are good options for people without work experience if you want to get into a top college for your MBA. So if you want, you can take a picture of the screen. So Anagha, you were asking, is there a difference in quality between INSEAD, Singapore and France campus? No, there is absolutely no difference. You get the same degree, same, it's absolutely no difference in quality. So they are not, all of those are not, so these are the deferred programs. That means you start later, 2 years. So this is a deferred program. The 2+2s are deferred programs. Everything else like Yale Silver Scholar, you start right after your final year of bachelor's degree. These all you start immediately. Actually, Stanford is also deferred 2 years. So these, the circled ones, you start 2 years after your bachelor's degree. Everything else you start immediately. Okay, now do you know what STEM stands for? Yes, what does STEM stand for? Can anybody tell me what STEM? Yes, can you raise your hand? What does STEM stand for? So STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, right? So science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So M does not stand for management, right? M stands for maths, mathematics, right? So now STEM education is highly highly sought after. There are fewer people who go into STEM, right? So in the US especially, there's a dearth of STEM professionals, and there are far more jobs in the STEM domain than eligible people. So there's a massive dearth, right? So the US, they have some special rules and regulations to attract STEM people into their country. Their own students, around 60% go into non-STEM. Only about 45% of their own students go into STEM. Therefore, there is a massive, gap in the, in the job market. There are more jobs than people in the STEM category. Now, so as I said, in STEM, there's a massive gap. So therefore, US has some provisions to attract, students into STEM. So after any STEM degree, as a foreign student, as an international student, if you do a STEM degree in the US, you get a 3-year postmaster's OPT. So don't get forget the language. Don't worry about what's the full form of OPT, etc. It just means that after finishing your degree, you get to stay in the US for 3 years. Non-STEM programs, you get to stay only for 1 year, right? So if you do a non-STEM program, you get to stay on your student visa itself. You get to stay in the US for 1 year. But if you do a STEM degree, then on your student visa, you get to stay in the US for 3 years after your degree. Okay, so there's a massive advantage of doing a STEM degree in the US. What it means is that you get 3 chances to get an H-1B visa. If you can stay in the country for only 1 year after finishing a master's degree, you get, your name goes into the H-1B lottery only once, right? But if you stay there for 3 years, if you are getting to stay there for 3 years, so your name's gonna go there you are getting 3 shots at getting the H-1B visa, which is a massive advantage. Now, because, as I said, because there is a massive gap in the STEM, so some of the MBA programs, MBA traditionally is a non-STEM degree. It's a management degree. It is not science, technology, engineering, or math. So traditionally, MBA has always been categorized as a non-STEM degree. But in the last 3-4 years, actually in the last 2 years, than before, lot of the MBA programs have started adding STEM kind of streams. Some specializations, if you take, your MBA becomes a STEM MBA. So these are some of the management programs, some of the MBA programs and management programs in the US that come under STEM. So the MS Finance degree from these colleges, the MS in Technology Management programs from these colleges, the Business Analytics program from these colleges. So they have the STEM designation. That means you get to stay in the US for 3 years after completing your degree. Similarly, if you do an MBA specialization in these MBA specializations, if you do, they come under STEM. So your MBA becomes a STEM degree. So some of the MBA programs have been designated as STEM degrees, even though they are management degrees. So the Rochester Simon, Wisconsin, Georgia, Notre Dame. So these MBA programs are now STEM MBA programs. So if you do, and there are a lot more. These are just samples. There are a lot more programs, that have now the STEM designation. So if you want to safeguard yourself further, if you want to kind of minimize the risk, as much as possible, if you're nervous about, okay, if I do my MBA now, or my, like in the US now, what if I don't get a job, then all of that. So if you want to minimize that risk, then you should be considering doing STEM programs, so that you can stay on in the country for 3 more years after completing your degree. That means you have got 3 more chances of getting an H-1B visa, right? So please be aware of these options. And these are just some options. There are a lot more options. This is like this is a fad, literally a fad that is catching on. More and more universities are creating, STEM options within their MBAs, specializations that have STEM designations, etc., etc. Okay. If you want, again, you can click a picture of this screen. Okay. So now, just a little bit about what are the admissions criteria. So you will need the GMAT. In some colleges, the GRE is also accepted, but mostly the GMAT. A language test. If you are, if you want to study outside India, a language test would be needed. Your bachelor's degrees marks and anything that you have done beyond, like master's degree or any diploma, certification, etc., etc. Everything comes under your academic record. Universities don't care about your 10th and 12th marks. It's mostly your rest of the stuff. So on the GMAT, because the competition is tough, it makes sense to get as high a GMAT score as possible. Extracurriculars, very important. Internships and work experience. So if you have work experience, if not, then the internships, they also play an important role. Finally, when you start applying, you will need letters of recommendation and essays and SOPs, right? So these are the things that you would need, you submit in the first lot. And if the universities like your applications, then you would get an interview call. So that is the last stage of it, right? So so in this entire list of admissions criteria, the only standardized thing is the GMAT score. Standardized means they can be compared directly. A 720 is higher than 700. Doesn't matter who you are, which country you are from, what program you have studied, etc., etc. A 650 is lower than 680. So like it's standard, right? Same thing cannot be said for academic record. You cannot make a blanket statement that 70% is lower than 60, higher than 60%. If you have to ask more questions, such as which program did you do? Maybe if you have a 60% for like BA English honors, that is better than 70% in engineering, right? So so the only, as I said, the only thing that universities can compare directly is the GMAT score. Therefore, it makes sense to gun for as high a GMAT score as possible, even if the rest of your profile looks excellent, right? So Chinmay, when you were preparing for the GMAT exam, what kind of score were you targeting?
I was targeting anything above 700 because that gets you in the top 10 percentile in the world.
How much, for how long did you prepare for the exam?
So for me, actually, it was a bit of a rough preparation because I prepared for a year because I was balancing it with my engineering education, my projects. But yeah, so it can be done in 2 to 3 months if done properly.
And when you were preparing, what's the portion? Was there any portion of the GMAT exam that you struggled with, or maybe more comfortable with?
Since I'm from an engineering background, maths was always easier for me. But verbal, I had to struggle a bit to get above 35, the score above 35.
What did you finally get?
I got a V38 and a Q49.
And is this what are you happy with, or are you planning to take it again?
No, ma'am, I'm happy with the 700 plus. 720 is actually a good score. So, yeah, so I'm not planning to take it again.
And when do you plan to apply?
I am currently applying for the September 21 intake, and the round one deadlines are in October for the MM colleges, most of the MM colleges.
So do you think it's a good time to apply?
Yes, ma'am, it certainly is a very good time to apply because round one you have more chances of getting in, and the number of scholarships available are more in round one.
I mean,
So,
haven't you thought of like postponing it to next year or year after that till the coronavirus goes away?
no, ma'am, because there are high chances that the situation will simmer down in next year. If it doesn't, I can always opt for a deferment, which colleges usually give.
Okay, okay, all right.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you finally get to the essay section, remember this. This is the essay is the part where using which you will be kind of highlighting your accomplishments, not the CV. For CV, you can submit only a one-page CV. So there's nothing much going on in the CV. You cannot talk about all your accomplishments in the CV. So you will be doing it through your essays. So make sure that your essays are good. So when writing your essays, just keep in mind that the content and flow are more important than the language. So let me just give you an example. Now keep this in mind. When you finally start writing your essays, for example, that um, if you can say yourself that I have had a steep career graph, but if I am reading the essay, it's like it's meaningless to me. I don't know what that means. What is the meaning of steep? Is it really steep? I will have lots of questions. So instead, talk with data, right? Give and leave the interpretation to the reader. When you are saying I have had a steep career graph, you are kind of being a little arrogant. So instead of that, just give the data and the interviewer and the reader make his or her own conclusions, right? So you can present it in this kind of way that of the 20 people who joined at the same time, I was the only one to be promoted within 6 months. So it says the same thing, that I have had a steep career graph, but now you are not sounding arrogant. You are giving the data and I am adequately impressed. The reader is adequately impressed. Or something like this. The usual duration between two promotions in my industry is about 3 years. I, however, have been getting a promotion every year. Now that also tells me that, yeah, this guy's career graph is like better than his peer group. Or, at the age of 28, I am the youngest project leader in my organization. The average age of a project leader being 33 years. Now this also tells me that this guy is doing better in his like role than his peer group. So sometimes students write in their essays that I got 2 promotions in the last year. Okay, that is fine, but still as a reader I have this question in my head that is this normal in his company? What about the others? If this guy got 2 promotions, what about the others? So you have to make sure. So after having written your essays, like make a friend or somebody in your family who has no idea what to do in your job. Make that person read your essays and ask, are you impressed? If it's not, if the person is not impressed, not adequately impressed, then you may have to go back to the drawing board and rewrite your essays. So be very careful when you write your essays. Your essays are like there's a do or die. Whatever you have done, whatever you have accomplished, you have to share with the admissions committee using the essays. Okay, so make sure that you give yourself enough time to write the essays. Don't think that I will finish my application in a week. Does not happen. The first application that you will be writing, either for MIM or MBA, you should invest at least 3 weeks, to write, so you will go through multiple iterations. So, Chinmay, when you wrote your applications, for instance, how much time
Yes.
you invest per application?
Per application, almost 2 weeks, along
Mhm.
with the letter of recommendations. So it requires a lot of brainstorming, and you need to be very clear in terms of where you want to get to in 5 years. So at least for me, as a fresher, it was a very difficult task, and it took about 15 to 20 days for my first application.
So the first application takes the longest, right?
Yes, it does take the longest, because by then you would have articulated your career goals more properly.
And then in the subsequent applications would take lesser time, but leave yourself with enough time. Don't think that you will be able to
Yes.
apply to 5 universities in 2 weeks. That's not going to
Yeah,
happen.
yeah. It doesn't, it's not possible. Yeah.
I mean, if you leave your job and focus completely for 2 weeks, then maybe yes, but no, but you probably will not get leaves for 2 weeks, to focus on your applications. So make sure
Exactly.
that, yes. So where you, so did you start thinking about your applications or writing your essays before you took the GMAT or after?
After my GMAT, actually, I was enrolled with Jamboree for my counseling, and as soon as I got a good score, I started working on my applications.
Okay, so that's all from us at this point of time. If you have any questions, raise your hand and I will be able to answer your questions. If you don't have any questions, please feel free to leave. And any of you, if you want a free demo class or a profile evaluation session, just leave your number in the chat. And this is getting recorded, so the recording will be sent to you within 5 days, right? So if any kind of one-on-one discussion that you may want to have about your specific profile or program, please leave your number in the chat. And when I give you mic access, please specify who the question is for. The question can be for Chinmay or me, so do specify who the question is for. So yes, Kishore, what's your question? Kishore, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. No? Okay, Raghav Kohli, what's your question?
Hello. Hi. I have two. Actually, I want to ask question from you. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. So actually, I have a total of 2 years of experience. So should I go for MIM or for MBA?
You have 2 years of work experience till now, or will you have 2 years of work experience till
No,
next
no.
year?
2 years of experience till now.
Yeah, then you will have 3 years by the time you start your program, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, then you should go for MBA.
Okay. So what? So I was thinking to apply for ISB also. So should I go for there are 3 courses in ISB, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, early entry, regular MBA, and YLP. So you will be considered in the regular MBA because the early entry is also for people with less than 2 years of work experience. Yes, Raghav, can you hear me? I think we lost Raghav there.
Okay.
Yes, Kunal, what's your question?
Yes, hi ma'am. My name is Kunal, and I am 24 years old, and I am in my final year of BBA. And I have lost 4 years of academics because I opted for engineering after my 12th, and I did not like the course, so I dropped it. I dropped engineering. So that's how I lost around 4 years of my the academics. So now I'm 24 years old and in BBA. So is MBA or MIM the better option for me?
It totally depends on your work experience. So if it's less than 2 years, you should go for MIM. If it's more than 2 years, you should go for MBA.
I don't have any work experience because as soon as I dropped out engineering, I started my BBA. So it's
Okay.
like I'll be completing my BBA in 2021.
Okay.
That's fine.
So-
That's fine.
so-
So yeah, as Chinmay was saying, so the MBA MIM decision is not based on how old you are. It's about how many years of work experience you have. So you will have less than 2 years of work experience the next time. So you can go for MIM, and you can also go for some MBA programs where where they will be okay with less than 1 year of work experience.
So is it okay to opt for an MBA? The matlab universities that are offering MBA without the work experience? Get
Yeah,
to hear or read the articles that you shouldn't. I mean, there's no. It's not good if you're applying an MBA without any work experience.
There are people who apply for MBA without work. I mean, it's not without work experience, you know. So you can. I mean, I would recommend that you apply to a mix of colleges. Majorly apply for MIM programs. But with MIM programs, most of the MIM programs are in the good MIM programs are in Europe, and they give a lot of weightage to the academic records of people, you know.
Okay.
So that's why you should apply to a mix of programs, MBA as well as MIM, and wherever you get admission, you go there.
Okay. And also I have heard about some courses, like Canadian universities. They offer the course like if you don't have a work experience, you do 1 year of PG diploma, and then you are eligible for an MBA course. That is the degree course. After that, 1 year of PG diploma.
It's like a foundation kind of. Yes, you can go that route too.
So is that a good option, and that has a future
it's a good
scope?
option. Yes. Finally, you will end up studying for 3 years, you know, obviously. 1 year postgraduate diploma followed by the actual degree. So, but that's a good option too.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, thank you.
All right. Yes, Vishal, what's your question?
Yeah, hi, ma'am. I've just started preparing for my GMAT, so I'm planning to take exam somewhere in December. So I just want to know what would be the process time post that? What is the earliest intake I can target for in any college in US, especially?
It will be for fall of next year. The session starting August, September of next year. If you are taking the exam in December, then it will be August, September of next year.
Okay. So probably after GMAT, I think it would take 2 to 3 months of application processes, and then rest of the process probably takes time.
Yeah, but the problem is that the first round deadlines would already be over by then. You will be applying in round 2, and the round 2 deadlines will mostly get over by end of January. So you will not have 2-3 months. So do plan to take your GMAT exam in the beginning of December, so that you still have about a month and a half, you know.
Okay, perfect. I understand. And then meanwhile, I think I should get over with IELTS as well, so that I don't waste another 20-25 days before taking IELTS exam.
First of all, see, I would take your GMAT first and see what kind of scores you have a word with your admissions counselor to make a semi-final shortlist. If the universities that you apply to are in Asia, for instance, then you don't need to take IELTS or TOEFL anyway. If even in a lot of the European, American, and Canadian colleges, you don't have to take the TOEFL or IELTS if your bachelor's degree, the medium of instruction was in English. So before deciding whether you have to take the language test or not, I would say that you first take the GMAT exam and then see what kind of score you are getting. And then make up your mind. TOEFL IELTS preparation after the GMAT exam takes only around 2 weeks. Doesn't take much more.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a great idea. Basically, actually, I'm planning only for US due to some personal reason. I'm planning only for US. It's like either US or it's okay, fine.
If you get a 700, then there will be lots of options for you in the US where you don't have to take the language test. But if you get like 600, 620, then the kind of colleges that you will be applying to, they will need the language test. So first take the GMAT score and then plan from there on.
Perfect.
Yeah, I would like to add in on that, ma'am.
Yeah.
So the thing is, IELTS is optional now because of the COVID situation. And if your medium of education is completely in English, you can opt for a waiver. So you have to mail the college in that case, and they give you a waiver, especially for the COVID situation. Yeah.
In a lot of the at least IELTS, yes. I mean, in a lot of the US colleges, anyway, you don't even without having to apply for the waiver. Also, I mean, it's mentioned in the websites. You know?
Yeah.
Okay, so probably I'll get to websites of few colleges which I'm targeting at, and I should get
What
some
kind of colleges
additional
are you
info.
targeting?
I'm actually targeting for tier 2 colleges because long back also I had taken GMAT. At that time, my score was 650. Actually, I'm one graduate in postgraduate MBA with SPGN, like 1 year
Okay,
executive program.
okay, okay,
So
okay.
I did it long back, like 7-8 years ago. Now I just want to refresh my skill, and due to some personal reason, I want to move to US. So I'm just trying to do it again.
Right, right. So, yeah. So, like Vishal, have you left your number in the chat?
No, I didn't leave
Yeah,
the number.
do that because we have, we work closely. We have tie-ups with some US universities.
Okay,
So
sure.
we can help you, help you make your journey much easier. Because we have relationships with those universities, we can talk to them on your behalf. And if you, I mean, if your objective is to go to the US, not a top 15 college, obviously, not a
Yeah.
top 20 college, any other college, we have a long list of universities where we have relationships with. So I'll put you in touch with the person who manages those relationships. So leave your number and just write. Write I don't know what to write. Write US Alliance, right? US
Sure,
Alliance,
sure.
and I will put you in touch with the person, and he
Got
can
it.
give you some universities where where getting admission should be easier.
Right, right. Sure. Thank you so much. That was quite informative. So I'll drop the message.
Right, sure, all right. Okay, so we'll take a couple of more questions. We'll take 2 more questions and then we'll wrap it up. So, and if I have not been able to take your questions, please leave your number in the chat and we'll speak to you. Pavan Chaudhary, what's your question? Pavan Chaudhary, you can unmute your. Yes, Pavan Chaudhary. Okay, maybe in even maybe not. Okay. Vaishnav Chand, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. What's your question, Vaishnav Chand?
Hello, good evening, madam. I'm Vaishnav Chand.
Hi.
Yes, I have about 11 years of experience in oil and gas. So I want to ask what specialization in MBA are suitable for me?
What do you do in oil and gas?
I'm basically looking
Are you an
after
engineer?
operations. Yes, I'm engineer. I'm petroleum engineer. I'm looking after operations in oil and gas. Basically in refineries, I have most of my experience in refineries. So what sort of specialization in MBA are suitable for me?
There are 2 specializations that you can consider. One is straightforward operations management, which will be carry forward of what you are currently doing. So operations management similar specialization you can look at. Also, the next is depending on what your long-term career goal is. If you want to get into senior management, etc., and you have 11 years of work experience, which is good, then general management is also something that you can look at. But general management specialization is done by people who like the CEOs, etc., etc. They kind of do general management. General management means looking at
Those
the
who are
overall.
already established in the management, they will do general management, right?
Right. So if
Okay.
that is your long-term career goal that you want to get into senior management, so either you can look at operations management, which will be like direct carry forward from what you are currently doing, or you can even consider general management because you have 11 years of work experience.
Okay. So logistics, supply chain, they don't
That
suit
also
me.
you can do. That also you can do, obviously.
Okay. Okay.
Logistics and supply chain.
I was more interested in finance things. So my profile, I think, is it suitable for finances? Because I don't have a finance background.
Yeah. So now, so if you apply for an MBA finance, then it will be very difficult for you to get admission in. So my recommendation would be is to take in your applications, etc., mention that you want to do MBA in operations management or supply chain logistics, whatever that. So and after you get the admission, So anyway, you have to pick your major after your first year of MBA. So what you finally do, nobody is going to check whether you did exactly what you wrote in your essays or not, right? So when you apply your objective is to get admission, right? So so choose something which will be easier for you to get admission in, and once you get into the business school, then in the second semester you can choose anything as your major. You don't finance or entrepreneurship, anything that you are eligible for. So most of the specializations are given to you have to bid for them, obviously, depending on how you have, what grades you get in the relevant courses in the first year. So you may say that you want to do operations management, but if you don't do well in the relevant courses in the first semester, if you don't get good grades, then you may not even get operations management as your specialization in the second year, right?
Yes. Okay.
So,
Thank you.
So my recommendation is that when you apply, say either supply chain or operations management or general management, because that is more in sync with your profile, and you will get admission. And once you go there, take the relevant courses, and then you can end up doing an MBA finance also.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Thank you for the guidance.
Right. But be a little careful when after doing the MBA finance, when you finally compete for jobs, you don't have any previous finance job. So compared to somebody who has experience, you will start off at a couple of levels lower, So think on those terms as well. Ultimately, you do an MBA, to get a decent job, right? So think on those terms as well. Okay, so this is the last question of the day. Mukta, what's your question? In the meantime, the rest of you, if we are not able to answer your questions, please leave your number in the chat.
Good evening, ma'am. I'm Mukta. I'm doing my second year of BCom. And I've heard that if you have to do MBA abroad, you should have 4 years of academics, but BCom is only 3 years. So would you recommend for a work experience and then try MBA, or do it after my UG?
I didn't answer your question about 3 years, 4 years. Can you say that again?
I've heard that if you have to do MBA abroad, you should have 4 years of academics. You should do 4-year academics in India, but BCom is only 3 years.
That's not true. So that's not true.
It's okay. I'm confused.
Yeah, so it is not true that you have to have a 4-year degree to be able to do an MBA abroad. Yeah, that's
okay,
not
so
the
I
case.
can do it right after my UG.
Yeah, you can. Yes. So in some in some US and Canadian colleges you may have, but in a lot of European, Australian, Asian, Singapore colleges, you can apply with a 3-year degree from India. Even in 20-25% of the US universities also, you can apply with a 3-year India bachelor's degree from India.
Okay.
It's not true that you have to have a 4-year degree.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. All right, so that's all for now. Thank you, everyone. Chinmay, do you have any parting advice for students about how to prepare for their GMAT exam? What things they should take into consideration before deciding what program, when is the right time to apply, etc. Just I am sure our students will gain a lot from your advice.
Sure. So GMAT is more about your quality of approach rather than your quantity, how many questions you solve daily. And I would suggest all of you to sign up to this forum called GMAT Club, which is completely free and which will help you along with your Jamboree education. And it has many blogs as to how to excel according to your specific background. And considering which course to take up, I would say that it's solely based on your work experience and the ROI and which industry you want to get into. So most of the masters in management students get into consulting field. That is why I chose masters in management. And yeah, so that's it. If you have any questions, happy to help.
Okay, thanks, Chinmay. Thanks for your time. I hope you had fun.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Thank you so much for calling.
And all the best for your applications. I hope you get admission in the college of your choice. Hopefully London LBS or HCC.
Thank you so
So
much. Thank you so much, ma'am.
and
Yes,
stay in touch.
definitely. Yeah.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye. So I'm going to be around for the next couple of minutes to allow you to, post your numbers in the chat so that we can reach out to you and have a word with you and address whatever questions you have. If you don't have any questions, or if you do, so please feel free to leave. Have a great evening, everyone. I hope you found this session useful.